Alright, I think I remembered to go on mute this time. Welcome everyone. Today we are going to be drawing hands. I'm Shano, by the way. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about basic hand anatomy, basic hand, hand. I keep saying hands. Hands was last week. We're doing faces today. We're going to do basic face anatomy, basically how to draw faces, and how to hopefully avoid same face syndrome. So before we get super started, if you like what I do, don't hesitate to become a patron or make a donation. I have links to that below. And during the course of the stream, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'm doing my best to keep an eye on the chat today, and I'll answer your questions the best I can. And hopefully we'll have a good time. So, starting off. Before we can even start drawing features on the face, we have to actually have a head to draw the face on. And the first step to avoiding that same face syndrome is to have a different shaped head. The way we go about this, let's make sure we're drawing black here, is kind of combining our head, our skull shape, with our chins. And different shaped skulls, different shaped chins will give us different shaped heads. So let's say we have like a, kind of a circle shape. And then for the jaw, maybe more of a square shape. That's going to give us one shaped head here. Or if we have maybe someone who, if you want like a Brainiac character, maybe their skull is going to be rather large here, and then their jaw is going to be rather small. Or if you're going for like maybe an Incredible Hulk-like character, maybe their skull is kind of small because their brain isn't too big here. But like a really big jaw. So you're going to get a whole bunch of different shaped faces this way. Maybe more of a rounder head, and maybe more pointed jaw. There's a lot of different ways, or I should say a lot of different combinations here. So that gets us our starting point here. Now, if you guys read my comic Shadows of Oblivion, there's a few main characters that you'll notice. Our main character Cerberus, he has kind of more of a squarish head. So if you look at his head, the skull part is a little more round, but his jaw is very square. For our starting point. Our character, the Lieutenant, he has kind of more of a, almost like a diamond-shaped head. It kind of gets smaller on the top, and then kind of comes down like this. War Angel and Gear, they kind of have kind of similar faces, very round, and kind of more pointed jaws. Now, Gears is much more round than War Angel's, but her War Angel's is still pretty round. I'm running out of room here. Just take my word for it. Her head is very round like this, but a little bit taller. So, All right, so once we get our head situated, we have to get our features on the face placed properly. So I'm just going to do a very generic head here. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just gonna... kind of a squarish jaw, but coming a little bit more to a point at the chin. Alright, so I have my face here. Obviously, I don't need this second circle here, so I'm just going to erase that. Now I gotta do my placement. So, I'm sure everyone has seen, drawing the guidelines, and you might think to yourself, you don't really need it. I know where the eyes, nose, and mouth go. I don't need to draw the guidelines. And you probably do. You probably do know where it is, I mean. But even though you know where they go, you'd be surprised how much easier it makes it on you to draw all these guidelines. The guidelines are always a good habit. It doesn't matter how good you get at this. By drawing in all the guidelines, it's going to prevent you from making any mistakes. Even as a seasoned vet, it's always good to avoid the basic mistakes. So, when you're drawing the eyes, or finding the placement of all the features, starting with the eyes, I think everyone, when they first start drawing, they want to put the eyes here. They want to put the eyes at the top of the head, which makes a little bit of sense when we think about our head as a whole. Like, if we just don't think of our head as a whole, but just think of our face, the eyes are at the top of our face. But in the context of our entire head, they are not. They are instead right smack dab in the middle. And that's where our eyes are going to go. Right in the middle there. So now that we know where our eyes go, we got to figure out where our nose goes, specifically the bottom of our nose. Whenever I ask my students, where do you think the nose goes, they always say underneath the eyes. Duh. They have to go underneath the eyes. I don't see anyone's nose up here unless there's some kind of alien. So, how far down is what's important here? So, like, you could put the nose here, you could put the nose here. But where the bottom of the nose goes is actually halfway. If you take this bottom half here, and you cut this in half again, that's where the bottom of your nose should be. Now, I should also say at this point, hey, Seth, I should also say at this point that everything that I'm doing here is just basic anatomy. Everyone's different. Everyone's face is different. And once you get good at this stuff, you're going to start messing with these proportions. You're going to give characters with really short noses or really big eyes or wide mouths or very long heads. And even real life people, when you look at, if you try to draw real people, you'll notice that, what I'm about to show you there's going to be variations. You're going to find eyes that are a little further apart and noses that are a little skinnier. Any way a person can look. But what I'm doing here isn't taking into account individual features. It's just the basics. Like, if you took the average of all the human beings on the planet, what would it look like? That's these proportions here. So keep that in mind while we're working here. So, we got our eye line, we got our nose line here. Now we want our mouth line. So, another thing I see very often is people want to put the mouth at the bottom of the head there. And that's not completely wrong, But you have to remember, our mouth, even though our mouth is at the bottom of our head, it's not at the bottom. We still have our chin, we have our jaw. I have this like long beard here. I have to shave. Anyway, so where our mouth line goes is halfway between our our nose line here and our chin. So that's where our mouth is going to go. Now, last feature we have to figure out is the ears. The ears actually sit right between the eye line. It goes a little bit above the eyes, but it kind of connects to the head on the eye line here and comes all the way down to where the nose line is. That's where our ears are going to sit. And our neck here, I'll draw the neck just so it doesn't look like a floating head. Our neck here connects behind the ears. I'm drawing a character that has a little bit of a thicker neck, but that's fine. Alright, so far so good. Any questions so far? Alright, there's not many of you watching, but that's okay. But as I said at the very beginning of the stream, if you have any questions while I'm drawing, just throw it in the chat. I'll happily answer them. Alright. Now that we know where roughly everything goes, let's actually draw them in. Let's start with our eyes. Now, the biggest mistake, I shouldn't say mistake, that's a bit strong. An error that might be made with the eyes is how far apart they are or how close they are. So, a good rule of thumb, at least when the face is looking straight ahead like what we're drawing right now, is to put about an eye width between each eye. So I'm drawing eye number 1. And if we have time tonight, we'll get into more specifics of how to draw eyes and noses specifically. But right now I just want to focus on the placement of all the features. So I've drawn one eye here. If I measure this distance from this corner to this corner, and you can kind of see that I'm doing it in my little window. But I'm taking my pencil here, and I'm measuring it from the end of the pencil, and I'm kind of moving my fingers to where the end of the eye is. And I'm taking that distance and moving it in between the eyes, so I know the other eye should start right about there. Measuring. So right about here should be where the other eye goes. So I'm going to draw that in. The other way to know if that you got basically the right distance here is if you measure half of an eye. There's a half an eye distance between the edge of the eye and the side of the head here. And that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Actually, this I feel like it's slightly off center. I think I can move side just over just a tad. Alright, give them some eyebrows. Alright. And again, we'll get more into the specifics of how to draw eyes and noses and mouths. We'll get more into that later. Right now, let's just get the placement down. Alright, close enough. Alright, so the nose. like I said, bottom of the nose is going to be on this line, but you want to make sure you get the nostrils the proper width. Now, again, this is important. Everyone's different, so what I'm about to say here does vary from person to person. But in general, the width of the nostrils are going to be about as wide as the eyes are apart from each other. So if I kind of draw these lines coming down here, that's about how wide these nostrils should be. Now, as far as the bridge of the nose goes here, that can have any number of shapes depending on the person. And again, we'll talk more about specifics in a little bit. Now look at how I did that. All right, so that's our nose. Then we got our mouth here. Let's get rid of this line here. Got our philtrum. Got our lips. Got our chin. Now the width of the mouth should be, again, on average, if you draw a straight line up, it should go right about halfway where the eyeballs are here. So the corner of the mouth should be there. The corner of the mouth should be about there. That seems a little too far. Over here. A little shadow under the chin. Got our basic face here. Let's add a little detail on the ears. The ears kind of do this. If we're looking at an ear from the side, there's these three parts. We got one part that curls around that. We have our, I don't even know what you would call that, the little flap that goes in front of your ear hole there. And then this part that curves around and back up to the top, which is kind of like a Y shape. So if I apply that here, we got one part that curls around, with a little flap that covers the ear hole, and the Y shape that comes up here like that. All right. All right, and there we go. Wow, that philtrum looks terrible. All right. So basics, that's our basic facial anatomy there. That's where everything is placed on our face. So I want to do both, but I kind of want the opinion of the chat here, which direction I should go in next. You guys rather me go into the specifics of each part of the face, like talking about the anatomy of the eyes, nose, mouth? Or would you rather me talk about drawing the face at different angles, like looking at 3/4 view or looking up or looking down? Which would you rather me tackle next? A little drink of water while I wait for you guys to throw in something. I don't want you guys to be shy. Go ahead and throw your ideas or questions or thoughts in the chat there. for myself. Let's get that first. All right. All right, 4. Specifics of each part, please. You got it. All right, so let's start with the eyes. When we're drawing the eye from the front here, everyone wants to either draw it like a teardrop, where it kind of comes to a point on one side and is very round. Oh, don't worry. I'll do both. I just wanted you guys to decide what I did next. So, all right. So a lot of times when I see eyes drawn, they're either drawn kind of like teardrops or kind of like footballs, like that. And both aren't exactly wrong, but neither are accurate. So, when we're talking with our eye, you have to remember with our eyes, it's a golf ball shaped, ball, stuffed into an eye socket with skin stretched over it. It's very gross. But because of that, we don't get symmetry like a football shape. The line of symmetry is not down the middle. The line of symmetry is actually diagonal. So what happens when we're drawing our eyes here, if this is the inside of our eye, let's say this is our nose here, very crudely drawn nose, the inside corner of our eye, starting from there, it goes up a very steep hill. And then once it kind of hits that peak, it comes down a less steep hill. And that's our top eyelid. And so then the bottom eyelid does the exact opposite. Starting on the outside, it goes down a very steep hill and comes up a less steep hill. Smooth that out a little bit. And that gets us our shape there. So because the eye comes down that steep hill and up a less steep hill, the line of symmetry isn't down the middle here, but it's actual diagonal this way. Or is it this way? No, it's this way. So we get a diagonal line of symmetry there. Let's get rid of that. Now, it doesn't matter, since everyone's eyes come in all different shapes and sizes, despite that, this part is still true. So if someone has very narrow eyes, the idea is going to be exactly the same. It's just going to be much more narrow. So it still goes up that steep hill, down the less steep hill, down the steep hill, back up the least steep hill. It's just much more, the angles are just different, leading to a much more narrow looking eye. Or someone can have a very round eye, where it goes up very steep, but because it's so steep, the downward hill part doesn't seem like a big difference here. So again, it doesn't matter if you're drawing someone with very round eyes, more narrow eyes, the same anatomy still applies, the same principle still applies. You're just going to modify it for the person you're drawing. So, yeah, this is a little confusing. Let me get this out of here. Alright, so once we have your top eyelid and bottom eyelid, what you do next is kind of up to you as far as how much detail you want to put in. You can put in, whatever you want for eyebrows. If you want to put in like more detail for the eyelids here. It kind of just depends on the level of realism you're going with your drawing. If you want to, really look realistic, you can draw the little tear duct in there. Or if you want to keep it more cartoony, you can just keep the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid. So once you have this, you got to put in the iris and the pupil. Depending on the eye shape itself, if you have a more round eye or a more narrow eye, this might change a little bit, but almost always, I should say, the top of the iris, the colored part of your eye, is always going to get covered up by the eyelid. At least when the eye is more relaxed. If someone's really shocked, like their eyes are really wide and they're like, oh, the iris you'll probably be able to see all the iris. But when someone's just looking ahead, relaxed, normal, the top of the iris is going to get covered up. If someone has more narrow eyes, maybe the top and the bottom of the iris will be covered up. It really just depends on the person, but at the very least, the top of the iris is going to get covered up. And then the second part, obviously, is the pupil. The pupil is going to sit towards the top. Now, again, if someone's eyes are a little more narrow, it might sit more in the center, just because the eyelids are covering both the top and the bottom of the iris. But at the very least, it's going to sit towards the top there. And there we have our basic eye there. Now, this might look a little funky to you. That's because there's no shine in here. To make your eyes are going to look kind of dead unless you have put some kind of reflective shine into the eyes. Okay, looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to talk about drawing the... Actually, let's talk about it right now. When drawing the eye in profile, two things. When we say drawing the face in at different angles in a little bit, I'll go more in depth how you figure out how to draw a face in profile like this. Oops. But when we're drawing the eye in profile, first of all, you don't want to draw the eye. Let's see here. You don't want to draw the eye there. So many people, they think, well, the eyes are sitting at the front of the face, so when we're in profile, I should draw the eyes at the front of the face. But often people forget that our eyes sit in an eye socket, which means even at the side, it's still going to appear back a little bit. And our eyes, from the side, kind of have more of like a slice of pie shape. Now, when it comes to the iris and the pupil, they're going to be obviously less round and more like oblong shape here, like this. But this is the trick to getting the eye in profile to look correct. It's to put the pupil not at the front. Again, you think of the pupil in the center of the eye, so in profile you think, well, it has to be in the center of the eye, like this. But that's not how it works. Our eyes, the pupil isn't a black dot on the front of our eye. Our pupil is literally a hole in our eye. Just like a camera lens. It's a hole that lets light in. And because of that, the pupil here is actually going to be towards the back of the eye. Or back of the iris, I should say. So something like that. That's our eye from the front or the side there. Now, many of you guys might want a more stylized look, maybe less realistic, maybe more in the vein of like manga or anime. Believe it or not, everything I just said still applies. So, we just have to stylize it a bit. So we have our, if we're going to draw a manga eye here, or an anime eye, by the way, just for the record, I hate calling that like anime style or manga style, because there's so many different manga artists that have such unique styles from each other. I think it's rude to say that all those great manga artists have one style, it's manga style. But here in America, we have a connotation of what anime eyes should look like. So I'm gonna go with the American connotation of anime. So anyway, we're gonna still follow the exact same rules here. We're gonna draw the top eyelid. It's gonna go up that steep hill, and it's gonna come down a less steep hill here. But because very typically, popular anime, the characters have very large eyes, we're not going to draw the bottom eyelid just yet. We're going to draw very large pupils here. I said pupils, but I meant the iris. Now we'll draw the pupils in. Although very often in anime, the pupils are kind of handled by color, not really with line art. In manga, obviously, they're all done with line art because it's all black and white, but anime, very often, it's done with color. Anyway. And we gotta put in our big anime shine here. And then maybe, not always, but maybe you draw the bottom eyelid after that. But sometimes, very often in manga, they don't even draw the bottom eyelid. They just draw the top eyelid, draw the pupil in there. Very kawaii. Look at that. So since we're still on eyes for a sec, let's talk about eyelashes real quick. They very often have the connotation that eyelashes are a female trait, but I think everyone knows we all have eyelashes. So if you want, if you want to draw eyelashes, it doesn't matter for male or female. All you gotta do is just kind of make the eyelid just a little bit thicker here. That'll indicate the idea of eyelashes. Mostly because it's a pain in the neck to have to draw little eyelashes over and over and over again. Now, if you want to draw long eyelashes, you're drawing a woman who's wearing a ton of mascara or fake eyelashes and they're just really long. You want to draw these curved lines, but you want to make sure you don't want to go like this. You don't want to just draw eyelashes like that. Unless you're going for some kind of stylized look. Because of the curve of our eye, even though our eyelashes grow pretty much straight out, because of the curve of our eyelids, it gives the appearance that the eyelashes curl away from our face. And the same can be applied here with our anime eyes. Whoops. Actually, I hate how that looks. Let's try that again. That's better. Yeah. Let's give this guy nice long eyelashes. So, from a profile, it's going to be the same thing, but it's going to curl towards the front here. There we go. Now everyone has luscious eyelashes. And that's the basics of an eye in a nutshell. Any questions? All right. I'm going to say that's a no. But if you do, if anyone has any questions, don't, just because I've moved on, I don't mind going back. Alright, so let's talk about noses. The thing about noses is they're so important to the face, even though they don't do anything. Like, your eyes move, your eyes are very expressive, your mouth is very expressive. No one ever says, wow, you have a very expressive nose. Because your nose just sits there on your face. But your nose is so unique to your face. It's one the reason why most people, when they draw a face, they suffer from same face syndrome is because everyone has the same nose. More than the shape of the face, more than the eyes, more than the mouth. If they all have the same nose, everyone's going to look the same. So having unique noses are important. So when we're drawing our nose, we have the bridge of our nose here, we have this fleshy bulb of our nose, and then we have our nostrils on the side. So the way I like to do this when I draw noses is I like to start kind of with 3 circles. This represents this bulb of our nose and our 2 nostrils, and you can make any kind of combination of that you want. Hold on a sec. Just refresh this real quick. There we go. All right. So you can make like a longer bulb of the nose and smaller nostrils, or you can have really wide nostrils on the bulb of the nose. And I fully realize this looks nothing like a nose right now. But it's just a starting point. It kind of gets the idea down of where the nostrils are, how wide the nostrils are, kind of how big the bulb of the nose is going to look. It's just a starting point. The next part I'd like to figure out is what is the shape of the bridge going to be? Is the bridge going to be kind of just straight? Is it going to get narrow? Is it going to get wider? Is it going to be non-existent? Some people don't really have much of a bridge to their nose. So here's some eyebrows here. I'm just going to give them a nice, just a straight bridge here. And again, I realize this doesn't look much like a nose right now. But it just kind of gets everything in place, and it's just a starting point. So once I kind of have it all together, now I can kind of delete what I don't need to make it look like a nose. I don't need these overlapping lines. I don't need to draw the top of the nostrils. Yeah, that looks pretty good. At least for a starting point here. Now, the funny thing when it comes to drawing noses, I just spent a lot of time talking about eyes and how you know, this is the shape of the eye, and it doesn't matter what kind of the shape of the eye, it still follows this basic shape. The nose doesn't really do that. The nose follows the same anatomy. We still have the bridge, we have the bulb, we have the nostrils. But other than that, the shape could be whatever. It just depends on the person. The only other thing I want to make sure that you guys realize is when you're kind of drawing the nose from the bottom here, and you have to draw the nostrils, the nose as a whole kind of has this triangle shape. So when you draw in the nostrils are going to have kind of a triangular shape too. This is if we're looking up this person's nose. And you want to make sure you draw the nostrils big enough. Keep in mind that your nostrils are big enough where you can stick your finger in there. If your nostrils weren't big enough for your fingers, you would not be able to pick your nose. So make sure you draw the nostrils large enough. Now, of course, when we're drawing the face looking straight ahead, the foreshortening of the nostrils means you're going to see very little, if you'll see the nostrils at all, depending on the angle. But in general, you want to make sure you keep those nostrils large enough. And I think the only other thing I want to talk about with noses here is just, again, keep in mind that the nose as a whole, it doesn't matter the very specific shape, but as a whole is very much like a wedge shape that sticks onto the face. So if we have the side of our face here, and when you just keep in mind that the nose is going to be this wedge shape that sits on the front, it'll help you when you're drawing the face at different angles, because when, like, I know this looks like a very cartoonish nose, and it could be if you're going for that, but if I keep that in mind, when I draw a nose here and I keep it inside that kind of general wedge shape, it doesn't matter what kind of nose this person has. If it's within the confines of that wedge shape, it's going to fit, and it'll be easier to think of it in terms of 3D when you start drawing the face at different angles, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I know that was a little fast on the noses. Let me know if there's anything I didn't cover that you've always wondered about drawing noses. And again, I know there's a lag when it comes to live streaming. So I'll ask a question, wait for a response, and I might not get it right away, and I might move on. But if I've moved on and you still have a question, please ask it. I'll come back. I'll happily answer the question. So moving on to the mouth. So when we're drawing the mouth, I find it easy to think of the mouth in terms of letters of the alphabet. So the opening of the mouth is going to be this kind of very subtle M shape. Kind of drawn out M shape. Now right now that doesn't look like much. So let's get the lips drawn on here. So the upper lip actually folds underneath the bottom lip. And I'll show more what that means in a second. But the top lip kind of forms this larger M shape. That's a lopsided M shape. Now this is a bit over-exaggerated, but the reason why you get this M shape is because of the philtrum, that little indent that goes between your nose and your lip. Sometimes it's called the Cupid's bow. So if I had my nose here, between the nose and the lips are going to be the philtrum. Now, admittedly, that's a pretty big philtrum. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Let's clean up this just a little bit. There we go. Anyone who pops into the stream right now are gonna think I'm drawing like seagulls, the way that kids do, like little V's like this. But no, I'm not drawing birds. I'm drawing mouths. Anyway, okay, let's get back to this. We have our top lip here. Now remember, the bottom lip folds underneath. So the bottom lip doesn't start at the corner here. You're not going to draw your bottom lip like that. Well, you won't draw like that anyway, but... So your bottom lip isn't going to look like this. It folds underneath your top lip. So because of that, it kind of starts maybe about here. And because of your chin, it's going to form kind of a W shape. And that's our lips, at least looking straight ahead in a nutshell. Now, obviously, I really over-exaggerated this. But much like the eyes, you're going to take the different, this basic idea and apply it to the kind of person you're drawing. So maybe they have thinner lips, so they're still going to have that W and M shape. They're just not going to be as drastic because their lips are thinner. Or maybe they have a big top lip And maybe the Cupid's bow is very small. So you might not even really notice it. It might look more like a hill here. And maybe they have a very small bottom lip. And maybe they don't have a very predominant chin, so maybe the W part is very subtle. So when we're drawing the mouth from the side, we have to keep in mind that our lips are angled. Our top lip is angled downward, and our bottom lip is angled upward. So when we're drawing our mouth from the side here, when you get to the lips, you want to make sure the top lip is at this downward angle here, and the bottom lip here is angled upward like this. And I know right now this looks like they're going, ooh. That's just because I haven't drawn the actual opening here. Now, because the philtrum is this space here, that means the top lip here is already moving up by the time it gets here. And it's going to fold around like that. And then the bottom lip, again, folds underneath, so it's not going to go all the way to the corner here. Fold around to where the lip is there. That's essentially lips from the side. Now, let's just mention one thing. When I talked about eyes, I talked about the eyelashes being kind of a feminine thing, even though everyone has eyelashes. Same thing with lips. When you see lips like this, very often, at least in Western culture at the very least, you think of lipstick. You think of those are being female lips because women are often ones that wear lipstick, and they accentuate the lips like that. So if you're trying to draw a character, and the character is, you want the character to look a little more masculine, or you just don't want the character to look like they're wearing makeup, but you still want to have them have the shape of the lips here, the secret to drawing that is actually not draw the whole mouth. So, if we have, let me draw a real quick face here. Really uneven eyes. Alright, good enough to get the point across. So if I'm drawing the mouth here, and I draw the upper lip, draw the opening of the mouth here, and I draw the bottom lip, and I think to myself, that just looks too feminine. I just don't want this character to look like they're wearing makeup. The easy fix is to take away some of these lines. So without me adding anything to this, I'm just going to erase. If I erase some of this line here, some of this line here, and not the whole bottom lip, but just some of the bottom lip here, this mouth now still has the same shape of the, it indicates the mouth and the lips, but it doesn't look like they're wearing makeup. It doesn't look like they have big, full lips. And that is pretty much the mouth. And we already talked about the ears, how the ears curl around. We have the flat here, and we have the earlobe. And it comes up in that little Y shape here, like this. And that is, again, basics. I'm just covering basics today. I'm not going into crazy in depth with drawing faces. I really encourage you guys to take these basics and then go look at real life people and practice drawing, unique features of the face. But yeah, those are basics for your eyes, nose, and mouth. Any questions? Anything you want me to go more in depth in? If maybe I just glanced over something too quickly and you want me to go back to it, any of that stuff, I'm totally okay with doing. You just gotta ask. That's all. All right. Well, while I wait for you guys to ask any questions you might have, I think we can talk about how to draw the head at different angles. Wow, I've already been drawing for an hour? Man, time flies when you're having fun. Alright. I don't see anything in the chat, but again, that shouldn't stop you guys. If you have any questions, want me to go more in depth about anything, or follow up with anything, you just let me know. So drawing the face at different angles. You might have noticed I've drawn the head the way I did at the very beginning, and that is because this is really important for drawing the head at like 3/4 or even full profile. So our heads from side to side is not as wide as our head is from front to back. Our head is bigger from front to back. So because that being the case, when you turn your head to either side, it doesn't matter, more of the back of your head is going to get exposed. So you want to be sure to draw that when you incorporate your 3/4 view. So the first thing you're going to do, so you first set up your drawing, your face, so it's looking straight ahead here. Next you're going to do is draw what's going to be your new center line. I'm going to get this right one of this time. Okay. Nope. There we go. Your new center line. So this is the old center line with the head looking straight ahead. This is going to be the center line for the head looking at 3/4 view. You're going to take your pencil, just like you measured the distance between the eyes. You're going to measure the distance between the old center line and the new center line. So when I measure that, I get about that distance, and you add that to the back of the head. So that's about there. So I'm going to add that to the back of the head here. Alright. You can then get rid of the old center line. Now, you might have noticed I only drew it to the eye line. I might extend it out a little bit more to go to here, but it's not going to go all the way to the chin. You don't want to do that. Excuse me. You don't want to do that. And the main reason is your neck is going to go there, your character's neck. So the back of the head isn't going to go all the way to the chin. Speaking of which, the old side of the head now becomes the jawline. I can erase this one here. And everything else is exactly in the same place as far as your guidelines go. So the eye line, nose line, mouth line, all of that goes in the same place. So, with that being the case, that means our ears are going to go behind the jaw, between the eye line and the nose line. Now, remember what I said, how the eyes are one eye apart when you're looking straight ahead. That becomes problematic when you're kind of trying to look from either side. So remember the other thing I said, how your eyes are about as far apart as your nostrils. So that becomes helpful here. So if I draw the nose first, and I know where the nostrils are, I know about where the eyes should be. So if I kind of draw a straight line up here, I know that's where the inside corner of my eye should start. Actually, I made this just a little too wide. Now the next eye, because I can't see this other nostril, that means that eye is probably starting right about where the eye, right about where the nostril touches the face there. And the mouth. So let's zoom in here. Let's talk about the mouth real quick. At a 3/4 angle, we have the philtrum here. We're going to do that W shape for the top lip. We can do our M shape for the opening here. But remember what I said with the top lip overlapping the bottom lip. So the bottom lip isn't going to go to the corner here, it's going to stay right about here. We have our top lip here that overlaps that. Fix this out. Now, a lot of you guys are probably thinking right about now, that looks good, but something looks way off. And that's because of this side of the head here. Our head is not a smooth sphere. We have our cheeks, we have our eye sockets, and our chin sticks out. Our chin is not underneath our head here. Our chin goes outward. So the way we fix that here, our eyes sit in an eye socket, so that's going to come in here. So it's going to kind of angle in to the corner of the eye, and it's going to come back out from that corner of the eye to show our cheek here. And our cheeks are about where our noses are, like where our nose ends here is about where your cheek ends. So I'm gonna draw the cheek here, end it right about the nose line. I'll slope it in there a little bit. Now, of course, everyone looks a little bit different, so everyone's cheek might be more rounded or more straight. Everyone's a little bit different, but in general, whenever the cheek comes out, it's going to be sloped in. And we don't want our chin to be underneath our head here. We want our chin to stick out. Again, everyone's chin is a little bit different, everyone's jawline's different. Frankly, this person looks very different. So I think if I was to fix up this person, I'm drawing here a little bit. I think I started with their head too round, so when I added extra, it made their head extra wide. So I'm gonna smooth that out just a little bit here. There we go. That looks better. Although I made a weird mistake. I have the mouth line here, but for some reason I have the mouth sitting way up here. So let me correct that. Whoops. Much better. So if we're going to draw the head and profile, we kind of follow the same principle here. Do our guidelines. Now, the new center line is actually going to be this edge here. So I just measure from the center line to the edge, add that to the back. Sorry, it's a little too high. This side becomes the new jaw here. The center line. I like drawing the nose next. Remember our eye socket, so the eye socket kind of dips in where the eye line is. Goes back out. Nose. Remember, our eyes start right around where our nostrils end. Remember what we just talked about with the eyes, it's going to be pie-shaped. We have our pupils here, our iris, our pupils at the back of the iris. Ears sit behind the jaw. And then we talked. Remember what we said about mouths from the side. We have the top lip that kind of points down. Bottom lip that points up. Remember, the chin sticks out. Huh. That looks funny. There we go. We got a face in profile. Wow, that's an ugly chin. It's cruel. Why would I draw him like that? Maybe it wasn't the chin. Maybe it's the nose. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I shouldn't be calling him ugly. I created him. He's beautiful. Alright, so that's our faces from 3/4 view and in profile. Any questions? So far, no. That's fine. Alright, so I think what we'll do is we'll talk about two more things. Having faces looking up, faces looking down, and once we do that, I think I'll open it up to any additional questions, and if there are none, then I think I'm just going to work on my comic, and you guys can watch me draw my comic for the rest of the stream after that. So, alright, faces looking down. Starts kind of the same way that we've been starting everything. Start with our head shape here. Start with our guidelines. So if I draw them a little bit straight here. Alright, so looking down, all the features on our face are going to be, well, down. So let's start with our eyeline. Depending on how far down they're going to look, that's how much lower you're going to put your eyeline. Notice how I'm curving that line. We want our features to follow the curve of our face. Now when the face is looking down, the same rules are going to apply. Where the eyes straight ahead, or the face straight ahead, we have the eyes in the center, the nose halfway between the eyes and the chin, mouth halfway between the nose and the chin. Same thing's going to happen here. So we have the eyes, and then halfway between the, hold on a sec. My brother's calling me. Hold on one sec here, guys. Live family action. All right. Back to it. Okay, so halfway between the eyes and the chin, we have our nose line. Halfway between the nose and the chin, we're going to have our mouth line. Now, the interesting thing here, hold on, one more thing. All right. So, as I was saying, sorry about that. Even though all the features on the face is moving down, the ears are going to stay right where they were. It's still going to stay between where the old eye line is and the old nose line was. The ears stay the same in the same place, but all the other features are going to move down. And so then, when we're drawing our eyes here, because all the features are moving down, the eyebrows are going to move much closer to the top of the eyes. In fact, if they're looking far enough down, the eyebrows might cover up the top of the eyelids. Or at the very least, they'll be touching. And because our eyes are very round, when we're pointed down here, it's going to be very, very curved on the bottom part of our eyes. Now, if you want someone to look very angry, this is a good way to do it. Have them looking straight ahead. While their head is tilted down. Very angry indeed. Now, when we get to our nose, because we're looking down, we're only going to see the top of our nose here. We're just going to see this kind of triangle shape. And of course, depending on the person that you're drawing, that the very specifics of that shape will change. And now the mouth. So I'm drawing a very angry person here. But if I draw the mouth to follow the curve of the head, it's going to look like they're smiling. Now that could give them a very sinister look, but let's say I wanted him to look very, very much a frown. No smirk, no evil smile. The way you do this, because you still want the mouth to follow the curve of your face, what you want to do is curve the corners of the mouth down. So even though the mouth is following the curve of the face, by curving the corners of the mouth down, he does not look like he's smiling, sinisterly or otherwise. Let's give him a few lines here. Actually, this is a good time to mention this. So when you're drawing your faces, the number of lines you put on the face will change how old this character looks. So this person looks relatively young. But if I start adding a bunch of lines, I'm going to do this on another layer here. So if I start adding lines here, so now this person looks a bit older. Now they look even older. Start adding some more crow's feet around the eyes. Some more lines around the mouth. Now this person's looking incredibly old. So the more lines you add, the older this any person you draw is going to look. So, not so old, super old. Not so old, super old. And you can even do the reverse here. If you start taking away lines, you can start making this character look even younger. So now this looks like a baby face here. So we got a baby face, young face, old face. And it's all about the lines. So sometimes the secret of drawing is not only knowing what lines to draw, but also knowing what lines you shouldn't be drawing. A lot of my students make this mistake where they try to draw themselves, and you know, these are young people, but even young people have the smile lines, like the lines that go around the nose and around the mouth, and so they try to draw those, but every time they do, they're, you know, a teenager suddenly looks like they're 45. So it's important to know which lines to leave in and which lines to leave out. And that comes with practice. You're not just going to magically know that. Alright, so the last thing I want to add to this face here is the chin. Remember, I was saying how the chin sticks out, so when the face is pointed down, the chin's going to look much more prominent here. So I'm going to give him a little bit more of a chin. So that's our face looking down, although the eyes are looking up, looking very angry. I think if you wanted this to look a little more normal, like someone's just looking down but they're not like super pissed, because usually when we're looking down, our eyes are also pointed down. So from someone that's looking straight ahead, the eyes are going to appear to be closed, or at least very close to being closed. And then if you wanted it to not look so like they're asleep, you can kind of maybe draw a little indication of where their pupils are. So this might be a more normal face that you might draw of someone looking down, where their eyes are literally looking down. They're not doing this, this evil, stare you down look. Most people, if they're looking down, it's just because they're looking down. So that's face looking down. Now let's do looking up. Alright, just like we have been, we're gonna start with our face. Basic looking up here. Or basic looking forward, I should say. Draw our basic guidelines. Although I'll be honest, most of these guidelines are going to go right out the window almost immediately. Alright, so just like when we're drawing the face looking down, drawing the face looking up, we're going to draw a new eyeline that is curving upward. The further up they're looking, the higher that line's gonna go. And like I said, we can almost immediately get rid of the rest of these guidelines because it doesn't really matter. Although, you don't want to do this before you might want to draw in the ears. Just like when we're drawing the face looking down like this, the ears stay in the same place. The ears don't, when you look up or look down, the ears relatively stay exactly in the same place. So in relationship to the face, where the ears look higher on the face when the eyes look down, the ears are going to look lower on the head when the face looks up. And that's only because the ears are literally staying in the same place and the rest of the facial features are moving up and down. So it's going to look like the faces, or it looks like the ears are going to be lower or higher. Alright, so we have our new eye line. So we'll worry about the nose and the mouth in a second. Let's first draw on the eyes. Now, everything is going to be almost the opposite of the face looking down here. The top, where the bottom of the eyes are much more curved, the top of the eyes are going to be much more curved here. Because remember, our eyeballs are literally balls. And so depending on the angle you're looking at, they're going to look rounder at some angle. And it's still going to be round, but it's going to look much more flat on the bottom of these eyes. All right. So that's our eyes here. Now the nose. The nose, because we're looking up, we're going to be looking at the very bottom of the nose. And if you guys remember from a little while ago when I was talking about drawing the noses, that must have been about a half hour ago, the bottom of the nose is going to be very triangular shaped. And the tip of that triangle is going to sit right between the eyes here. Now, like I've mentioned a few times, everyone's noses are a little bit different. So whatever shape that your character is drawn, whatever features your character has, you can adapt it. But no matter what features your character might have, it's still going to be triangular shaped, like with some variation. Like some noses might be very wide, some might be very tall and skinny. It doesn't really matter. It's still going to have that basic triangle shape. Now the mouth is going to be very much like the eyes, where the top lip is going to be much more curved than the bottom. So let's since this person's looking up, let's give them a little bit more of a wonder look. All right. Now, some of you guys are probably thinking right now, well, that face looks good. That face looks like it's looking up. But what's up with this crazy chin here? And the answer to that is we gotta get rid of it. Because when we're looking up, the chin moves up with it. Now, a very common mistake people will make when they're first drawing here is, you know, the eye line curves up, the nose curves up, the mouth curves up. Your first instinct is to want to make the chin curve up like that. But that is not how our chins work. Because our jaws are angled downward. There's like a downward angle there. So even when we look up, there's still either might be a downward angle, or at best, it's going to become even with the viewer here. So I'm going to kind of create a flattish line here, creating that new jawline. It's looking pretty good. And now I want to draw on our neck. If you remember from the beginning, our neck kind of connects behind the ears here. And one thing you want to add in at this point is something we don't really think about a whole lot because we don't spend a lot of time looking in the mirror like this. And you can't even really see it on me because I have a beard covering it up. But you want to make sure you get the throat part. The part that's like right underneath our chin. But right before like our Adam's apple and our larynx here. It's this kind of like U shape. Sits right underneath our jawline here. Now, a good practice, remember I was saying about leaving lines in and leaving lines out? A good practice is to not have a complete line here. I usually like to leave some of the lines out. Kind of helps with the looking up feature here. And I usually I haven't really drawn a lot of hair. But whenever I draw faces looking up, I always like to draw hair. Because when you're looking up, you're going to see a lot of forehead. So you're not going to really see the hairline too much. So you can draw whatever kind of crazy hair you're looking for. So this looks like some kid looking up at something crazy awesome and wonder. And that's faces looking up. So we got looking down, we got looking up, we got 3/4 view, we got side view. We talked about all sorts of things here. We got mouths. We got noses. We got eyes. We just got our basic anatomy here. So that, I think, covers just about everything. Oops. Well, I say everything, but all the basics. This covers all the basics about drawing faces. The basic anatomy, placement, how they work, how they move. There's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more to learn. But I'm not going to turn this stream into like a 6-hour stream. I don't think I could handle that. So I think what I'm going to do now is open it up to you guys. If there's any questions you guys have, if there's any anything you want me to elaborate on, if there's anything you want me to anything that was kind of ambiguous on that you want me to kind of be a little more elaborate more with, I'll happily answer that. And if there are no questions at all, I think I can call this tutorial done. And I think for maybe another 20 to 30 minutes, I think I'll just draw some comics. So, yeah. And go questions. And don't be shy. Don't if you think your question is stupid, don't worry. I can guarantee it's not. If this is all new to you, then please ask the questions. Like that's why I'm doing this basic stuff. And I think what I'm going to do while I wait for questions to come in is I think I am going to just switch over here and work on comics. Just going to put on some music. And I guess since I've switched over here, first of all, please don't feel like you can't ask any questions about drawing faces. But if you guys have any questions about my comic making, that is also okay to ask questions about. So how are the rest of you guys? I've just been talking away about making faces, and I didn't even ask how you guys were. I am very rude. whenever you're drawing backgrounds, you gotta make sure you don't create tangents here. Spent all that time, and I think we're gonna undo a lot. Some more bricks here. One of the advantages to inking it digitally, I can just undo any mistakes that I made. All right. So it looks like I've lost all of you. So apparently you guys were here for the tutorial. And not for Sean silently drawing comics. Good to know. I'll keep that in mind for future streams. Well, I don't see any point then in dragging this out any longer. Unless Seth or Doug, you guys have any questions for me? Or notes or anything like that. Alright. I think, since no one's really chatting it up, lost a bunch of my viewers, and it's been about 2 hours, so I think I don't see any reason why we need to keep this going. So, I want to thank everyone who came in and visited and watched me draw. If you like what I do, you want to support me, help me make more stuff, don't feel free to become a patron. There should be a link somewhere below this, or you can, donate, tip me on coffee, or just donate via PayPal. Just check out my comics. Actually, I need to go upload tomorrow's update, so I need to go do that real quick after this. And yeah, well, thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it. You taking the time to watch my stuff. So I think my next stream, I don't know exactly. It's going to be at least on Saturday, but if not Saturday, I might do an earlier one. I'm going to try out a couple days, so I might try like a Thursday in the afternoon, or maybe Friday in the evening. I'm not 100% sure when, but when I do decide, I'll definitely post it on social media. And yeah, I think that's it. Sooner or later, I'm going to learn how to properly end these things and look like a professional and not just some kind of doofus. So anyway, thanks guys, and I'll see you later this week. All right, bye.